Time, the invisible current that carries us from birth to death. We trust its flow, second by second, year by year, anchoring ourselves in the comfort of routine. But what if its current isn't so steady? What if time can warp, ripple, or even split, leaving us stranded in moments that never were, or glimpsing futures we should have never seen? Welcome to Arcane Echoes. I'm your host, Jessica. Tonight we slip through the cracks in the hourglass together to delve into the mysteries of time glitches, the vanished minutes, the impossible deja vus, the places and people that flicker in and out of existence like static on an ancient TV. Prepare to question your memories, your reality, and perhaps even your sanity. Pour yourself a drink, turn off the lights, and keep your eye on the clock. For tonight, time may not pass as you expect. Most of us move through life trusting that time only flows in one direction. But throughout history, there have been stories of people who lost time, found themselves out of sync with the world, or even stepped sideways into a different era altogether. Physicists say that time is bound up with space, capable of bending and twisting in ways our minds can barely grasp. Folklore whispers of fairy rings and haunted crossroads, where time stutters and skips, the unwary never returning as they were. Are these stories mere hallucinations, tricks of a tired mind, or glimpses into a deeper, stranger reality? There are moments when time itself seems to dissolve beneath our feet, like stepping onto a bridge made of mist. Missing time is perhaps the most unsettling of all the glitches, a sudden emptiness in the hours or minutes you expected to live. You might be driving a familiar route, walking home from work, or simply sitting in your living room when the world around you skips a beat. The sun is lower, shadows have stretched, and there's a taste of confusion, like waking from a dream you can't quite remember. Some say these are tricks of the mind, fleeting lapses in memory. But what if there's something deeper at work, a hidden hand snipping moments from your life and tossing them into the void? In this segment, we slip into the blank spaces in the day, seeking answers in the stories of those who have lost time and sometimes found something else in its place. A Reddit user named LovelyBonesX recounted her night driving home from college. She remembered a bright flash on the road ahead, then suddenly she was pulling into her driveway with 2 hours unaccounted for. Her gas tank was just as full as when she started. Her phone's GPS log simply showed a blank span. She later wrote, "I felt like I'd skipped ahead in a movie, but I was the only one who had noticed." A pair of hikers in Scotland recall finding a sunlit glade and eating lunch, surrounded by birdsong. After a short nap, they returned to the main trail, only to discover it was nearly dark. Their watches showed only an hour had passed, but they'd missed an entire afternoon. When they went back to find the glade a few days later, it was gone, replaced by thick bramble. Not all missing time stories happen in the shadowy corners of night. Some slip quietly into the routines of our everyday lives. One such account comes from a mother named Carly, who experienced a time glitch during the most mundane of tasks, picking up her children from school. It was a drizzly Thursday afternoon, the sky heavy with rain. Carly buckled her two kids into their booster seats, waved to the other parents, and started her familiar drive home. She remembers chatting with her children, the sound of the wipers against the windshield, and the static hum of the radio. The next thing she knew, she was sitting at a red light in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. The houses were unfamiliar, the trees seemed wrong, and her children were silent in the back seat, her youngest clutching his backpack as if sensing something wasn't right. Even stranger, the car clock said only 7 minutes had passed, but her phone insisted nearly half an hour was gone. When she finally found her way home, retracing her route was impossible. The street where she'd woken up didn't exist on her usual drive, and her GPS couldn't find it again. That night, as Carly tucked her children into bed, her eldest whispered, "Mom, did you see the other cars disappear?" But when she tried to ask more, her daughter simply shook her head as if the memory was already slipping away. The world is littered with these invisible chasms, hours, sometimes days, that simply vanish, leaving behind confusion, fear, and sometimes a sense that something watched from the other side. Now and then, a time glitch isn't just a matter of lost minutes, but of misplaced worlds. Imagine finding yourself in a place that doesn't belong, a roadside diner aglow with 1950s neon, a bookstore smelling of leather and dust that vanishes when you return. These are places out of step with reality, slipping in and out of existence like mirages in the heat. Some who stumble into these phantom places describe a heaviness in the air, a hush that presses against their skin, or the uncanny certainty that every detail is both familiar and impossibly wrong. Did they slip into the past or brush against another timeline entirely? Tonight, we open doors that should not open and wander into streets that no longer exist, or never did. Redditor Palehorse666 told of driving through Nevada late at night, stopping at a warmly lit 1950s style diner for coffee. The place felt strange, the waitress seemed out of time, the prices were bizarrely low, and the radio played songs from decades before. When he returned the next day, the diner was gone, and local residents insisted it had burned down in the 1970s. An anonymous account from a 2002 forum tells of a London man who ducked into a secondhand bookshop to escape the rain. He browsed for half an hour, chatted with an elderly proprietor, and bought a rare book on alchemy. The shop's receipt had no address, only a curious sigil. When he tried to find the place again, the block had no such shop, and no one had ever heard of it. Some phantom places appear just when you need them and vanish as soon as you turn your back. This account comes from a traveler named Eric on Reddit who was driving late at night through the empty backroads of Nevada. His gas tank was dangerously low, his phone had no signal, and the desert night pressed in with a suffocating silence. Out of nowhere, Eric saw the glow of an old-fashioned gas station up ahead, neon lights buzzing, the sign advertising prices that seemed impossibly cheap. Relieved, he pulled in, noticing how the entire place felt stuck in time, right down to the antique gas pumps and the faded ads for brands he'd thought long forgotten. The attendant, a man in impressed uniform, filled up his tank, nodded politely, and told Eric to be careful. The night here is different. When Eric offered to pay, the attendant just waved him off with a strange, knowing smile. Grateful but unsettled, Eric pulled away. A mile down the road, he realized he'd forgotten to check his receipt, so he turned back. But the gas station was gone. There was nothing but desert, and the GPS showed he hadn't left the highway at all. Later, he checked his tank. It was full, and the needle didn't budge for hours. To this day, Eric wonders if he'd stumbled across a patch of the past, or something else entirely, a phantom way station that appears only for the lost. Not all phantom places are urban anomalies. Some reside deep within nature's embrace, where the veil between realities seems thinnest. A hiker exploring the serene trails along the Ocowan River in Northern Virginia recounted an unsettling experience. Familiar with the area, he ventured onto a path he had walked many times before, but this time the trail seemed unfamiliar, the surroundings eerily silent. As he continued, he stumbled upon a clearing he had never seen, a tranquil meadow bathed in golden light, with wildflowers swaying gently. Entranced, he spent some time there, absorbing the serenity, but as dusk approached, he decided to head back. Retracing his steps proved impossible. The trail twisted and turned in unfamiliar ways, leading him deeper into the woods. Panic set in as darkness fell, and his GPS offered no help, displaying only a blank screen. After hours of wandering, he finally emerged onto a road miles from where he started. Days later, he attempted to find the mysterious meadow again, but it had vanished, no trail led to it, and locals claimed no such place existed. Time, for most of us, is a line, a river flowing only forward. But for a few, it becomes a circle or a maze, looping the same fragment of experience over and over. The sensation is dizzying. You step through a doorway and find yourself where you began, repeat a conversation with no memory of starting it, or relive a mundane moment that grows more and more surreal with each repetition. Are these loops mere glitches in our perception, or is time itself faltering, caught on a jagged edge like a broken record? As we explore these tales, listen for the details, the way reality seems to double back on itself, and how escape only comes when something finally breaks the cycle. A Reddit user named Universal Noodle described walking from her bedroom to the kitchen in her apartment. As she opened the fridge, she heard her roommate laugh in the living room. Suddenly, she was back in the bedroom doorway, walking towards the kitchen. Again. It happened 3 more times before finally breaking. She said the room felt heavy, as if time was thick and sticky. A delivery driver in Ohio reported being stuck on a long, straight road outside Dayton. He passed the same mile marker, 1.7, over and over, the numbers on his dashboard clock flickering and resetting. It lasted for what felt like hours before he finally broke through, arriving at his delivery point nearly on time. It was like a vinyl record skipping, only I wasn't inside the song. Sometimes the glitch isn't a moment, but a memory, a collective certainty about an event, a name, or a detail that simply doesn't match reality. This is the Mandela effect, named for the widespread belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison decades before he actually did. What does it mean when thousands or even millions remember the wrong history? Are these just quirks of human memory, or are we all, at times, brushing against the edges of alternate timelines? In this segment, we peer into the fractures in conscious reality, where the past is more flexible and the boundaries between worlds grow thin. Reddit user Chimera88 swore there was a childhood photo of her with a sister who never existed. Her mother vaguely remembered a girl named Sarah, but no one else did. They found an old photograph, her family standing in a field, a blurry shape behind them. Was it just a camera glitch, or proof of a lost sibling from another life? Not every time glitch is a grand event. Sometimes the most unsettling are those that slip quietly into the everyday. You reach for an object that isn't where you left it, only to find it later exactly where it should be. You see someone repeat an action, word for word, as if the world itself is buffering or resetting. In these moments, reality itself seems to flicker, as if we were living inside some vast simulation, and the program is stuttering. Are these the cracks that will one day widen, letting us glimpse the machinery behind the veil? Or are they gentle warnings that not all is as it seems? The following short stories, shared by listeners and found in online accounts, capture those uncanny, often unexplainable slips in our daily reality. Moments when the simulation, if that's what it is, seems to tremble. A man lost his favorite coffee mug, searching his entire apartment. Weeks later, it was back in its usual spot, warm, full of fresh coffee, steam rising. He lived alone. A woman, from Houston, took a nap on her couch after work, setting an alarm for 30 minutes. She awoke feeling rested, but her clock, phone, and the sunlight outside all insisted only 1 minute had passed. Are we the ones glitching, or is reality itself growing thin? Imagine turning a corner and stepping into another century, your senses flooded by unfamiliar scents, sights, and sounds. The phenomenon of time slips is among the most haunting, a sudden, inexplicable plunge into the past, as if you've been invited or trapped in someone else's history. These moments are never gentle. The world feels dreamlike, heavy, and when you return, reality feels thinner, your old life colored by the shadows of another era. What causes these slips? Are they echoes, invitations, or accidents? Let's wander through the mists of memory and explore stories where the past refuses to stay buried. In 1901, two British women touring the garden at Versailles found themselves surrounded by people in 18th century dress. The world felt unreal, the air heavy. They spoke with courtiers, saw a woman sketching, and heard faint music. When they tried to return, everything shifted. Suddenly, they were alone. Years later, they learned they'd described members of Marie Antoinette's court, right down to the day she was said to be mourning her fate. A woman named Beth described driving through northern Vermont and stumbling upon a tiny, old-fashioned village. She and her husband stopped at a bakery, bought bread with coins, and chatted with locals in curious accents. A week later, they returned, but the road was gone, replaced by deep woods. The bakery's bread, wrapped in paper, was stamped with the date, 1897. For every story of a time glitch, there are a dozen theories trying to explain it. Scientists speak of neurological quirks, microsleeps, where the brain briefly shuts off for a few seconds. creating the illusion of lost time, or temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that causes seizures capable of warping perceptions, sometimes accompanied by vivid hallucinations. Others point to physics and the tantalizing possibilities of parallel universes, as proposed by the many worlds theory, which suggests our reality is just one branch in a constantly dividing tree of outcomes. But beyond the realm of science, occult traditions whisper of places where time is thin and rituals that can bend the hourglass. Some believe that powerful emotions, sites of trauma, or ancient rituals can tear holes in the fabric of time itself. According to folklore, certain crossroads, abandoned buildings, or ancient forests act as natural portals. Tales speak of fairies and spirits who steal travelers away, only to return them years later, even centuries later, unchanged. Is time a line, a circle, or a maze? Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of time glitches is their slipperiness. The story you read last night has vanished. The person who you shared your experience with is gone, unreachable, as if erased. It's as if these moments resist being recorded, slipping out of memory, out of history, and back into the dark. Are these glitches erasing not just time, but proof of their existence? In 2015, a widely discussed thread appeared on Reddit Glitch in the Matrix. Dozens claimed to have seen a certain building appear and vanish on their commute. Within days, the thread vanished. Some say they bookmarked it only to find blank links. The building was never reported in any local news. Did the glitch erase not just time, but the memory itself? Here on Arcane Echoes, your stories are the lifeblood of our journey. Tonight, we hear from anonymous listeners who have danced on the edge of the impossible, those whose lives were changed forever by a brush with time out of joint. Some stories arrive as whispers, others as cries for answers, but all come from that thin, trembling place where reality unravels. Listener Story 1: The Future on the Bus. I was sitting on a city bus, scrolling my phone. I glanced up, and everyone was gone. The bus was empty, silent, drifting through a foggy landscape I'd never seen. I blinked, and suddenly, everything was back. The man next to me whispered, "Did you see that too?" He never spoke to me again. Listener Story 2: The Birthday That Wasn't. My mother insists we celebrated my birthday twice one year. Same cake, same presents, same song. She still has two photos, each with a different date stamp. I only remember one party. Listener Story 3: The Night That Lasted Forever. A snowstorm hit our town. My partner and I watched the flakes fall, made tea, played board games. After what felt like hours, I checked the time. It was still 9:17 p.m., the exact moment the storm had started. We kept trying to distract ourselves, but the clock refused to move. When the power flickered, suddenly it was midnight, and we felt unmoored, dizzy, like we'd slipped back into ourselves. The woman in the window. A man walked home one night, saw a woman waving at him from a second-story window, calling his name. He didn't recognize her, but she seemed desperate. The next day, he asked about the house. He was told it had burned down years before, with a young woman trapped inside. He looked up at the empty lot, and for a split second he saw her face reflected in the shattered window pane, caught forever between one moment and the next. Why do these stories persist, passed from person to person like dark fairy tales? Is there a rational explanation, or are we living inside a reality much stranger than we can imagine? Maybe it's just the mind playing tricks, a tired brain, a faulty memory, a brain glitch. But maybe, just maybe, there are cracks in the veneer of our world, places where the hourglass leaks and the sands of time pool in strange eddies. What if we're only a heartbeat away from slipping through the seams and waking up somewhere or somewhen else? As the night draws to a close, we end where all time glitches lead: uncertainty. Perhaps tonight's stories have left you unsettled, or perhaps they awakened an old memory, a moment you thought was just a dream. The truth is, none of us truly know what lies at the heart of these mysteries. But one thing is certain: reality is more fragile than we dare to believe, and sometimes If you listen closely, you can hear the ticking, slow and stutter. Thank you for wandering the fractured halls of time with me tonight. If you've experienced a time glitch, no matter how small, send it to arcaneechoespodcast@gmail.com. Your story may just be the next thread in this unraveling tapestry. Remember, next time you check the clock and the numbers don't make sense, or you find yourself somewhere you shouldn't be, trust your instincts and don't linger too long. Until our next journey, keep one eye on the shadows, one ear on the echo of time. Good night, travelers.